Alright, this is the beginning of another print using ABS, and basically what I'm showing by doing this is not to, to debate whether or not printing with ABS needs an enclosure or not, or whatever printer is needed or not. I'm just showing what my printer does, printing ABS. Now, as you can see, this is a basic Ender 3. I mean, you can see that it has the thinner rail here. This is a standard run-of-the-mill Ender 3 out of the box. As you can see, no added direct drive or gizmos or gadgets or added fan shrouds, or there's nothing changed about this printer. All right, the extruder right there is the plastic extruder that came with the printer a long time ago, 4.5, 5 years ago. So that is the plastic extruder body. Now, if for some reason the lever breaks, just replace the lever, keep the body, and you don't have to do E-step changes or bullshit calibrations or anything like that. Just change it, remove and replace. That's it, R&R, all right? You see a fan back there. That's the sound you're hearing. Not only are you hearing the fans from the Ender 3, but there's a fan here that's blowing the air in this area out a window, okay? Because again, it's been mentioned that ABS produces a form of toxic fumes. So it's best to ventilate the area the best you can, and this is how I'm doing it. You see my filament is mounted over here, and I would show you the sticker indicating ABS, but it is. Let's see if we can turn this around here. And it is ABS filament, okay? So there's no question about that. You see that it's a direct feed right here into the extruder, down the white Bowden tube, all right, into the hot end. It's not been modified as far as the traditional modifications. There's no electronic gizmo here because I simply use the paper feeler gauge, okay? That's it. And to start the print, the best way is to have a very flat, known to be flat surface. Once the surface is known to be flat, all you have to do is set the distance, okay? And that's what I do. So I know it's flat, so an electronic gizmo here has nothing to compensate for, all right? And then basically I just set the distance around the printing area, which in this case is right here on the tape. So that's the only place that I actually check the distance, because it's not printing out here. It doesn't matter out here. It's just printing right there, okay? So another thing, I'm going to go ahead and show here, it's a non-heated bed. I don't heat the bed. I never have heated the bed, whether it's PLA, PETG, ABS, or whatever. But the nozzle temp now is 245, and you can see that for yourself. You see the room temperature right there. It's a non-enclosed enclosure. It's open air. So there is a bit of a draft here because of that fan, but you'll see here in a second, or throughout the print, that it just doesn't matter in this particular case. And again, I'm not trying to prove that this is better than other ways of doing it. I'm just showing what I'm doing, okay? This is my technique, my routine. So this is it. My springs are stock. Those are just your stock standard springs that came with the printer. And I want to show real close up here. You can see the reason I use the tape. There are many reasons, not just for adhesion or because it's pretty, because I wanted to see the skirt on how translucent it is. And you can see there that it's almost translucent, and you can see the print going down now. Again, you can almost see through it. That means it's being troweled down properly at the proper thickness. If it's too bright, too white, or in this case, then it's not going down well enough. If you can't see it at all, it's too close. It's not feeding properly, all right? So another thing that's very important is temperature of the nozzle. 245 is good for ABS because you want good flow and you want good fusion. This is FDM printing, fusible deposition modeling. It's fusion between the layers that's very important. And you can see there that the first layer is going down super smooth as always. No breaks, no cracks, no lifting or anything like that. There's no brim used. No messy Elmer's purple glue stick. So there you go. I'm going to show something else here real quick. So I'm going to put the camera down. Okay, and again, no enclosure, all right? And I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just saying that's just how my printer is printing at this moment, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and grab this little example here. Basically, the change in the printer is this. Now, in order for a standard stock Ender 3, as you see here, and again, the Ender 3 is a perfect little printer. You don't need all that aftermarket so-called upgrades, updates, up this, up that. You don't need that, okay? Because this is printing now. The only reason you would need to change parts of it is because of the temperature. If the temperature goes above, say, 210, then you're going to damage the white Bowden tube. So the best way to keep the white Bowden tube in service is to keep it, because it's a good delivery. The only thing is you need it pressing up against the nozzle full time, okay, all the time. I've alleviated that. So now, as you see here, this is the coupler right here, and it's threaded into the top. There's a little ring right here that I don't know if you can see it, 3D printed, this little spacer right here, which is pressing down on the blue high temp tube. So I've eliminated the white tube right here by adding the blue tube, and now it's pressed up against the nozzle. So as long as this coupler is threaded into its proper location, it's pressing against this little coupler here, this little spacer, pressing down on the blue tube, the high temp tube. Filament goes through that, through and into the nozzle. The nozzle is heated, but since it's heated down here, it's not affecting the white tube up here. So basically, you've eliminated the fact that the white tube needs to be pressed constantly on this nozzle, okay? So this is now pressing constantly on the nozzle. As long as the fan, the cooling fan, is blowing against this area, this tube is kept relatively cool. Not super cool, but it's being kept cooler than the nozzle, the block. So filament will then indeed pass through the coupler right here, through the little spacer, through the tube, and through the hot nozzle. So as long as this is kept constant pressure between here, the coupler, and the nozzle, there's not going to be a gap. No gap will appear oozing out here because you have constant pressure. So the filament stays relatively rigid, not melting, not melting enough to ooze out. It stays relatively rigid all the way up until it reaches the hot nozzle. That's how it works. That's how 3D printing and this particular setup works. You don't need that added metal heat break or whatever, because you have to take the entire hot end apart to do that. I wanted to avoid that, so I wanted to be able to just keep the original hot end, not tear it apart, not change anything, keep the original what they call a little heat break right there, keep all of that. So all you're going to do is pull out the coupler right here. You're going to drop in the blue piece of properly cut, properly sized heat tube. This is the hot Bowden tube. It accepts the heat. And then this ring right here, this little added coupler, or this little added spacer, blocks the white tube from going through. It won't go past this point right here at all. It stays up here. So I can take it in and out all day long. It doesn't matter, because the coupler is pressed